Star Wars collectors, welcome to another Bosk's Bounty video, and in today's video I want to take a look at the 3.75 inch Black Series figures, the ones that came in the red and black box there. They're the Walmart exclusives. I have all 29 in front of me here. Finally been able to do this video because I've managed to pick up Leia, which was the only one that I needed. Now the reason I want to talk about these figures today is because they have kind of had a bit of stick in terms of the reason why the vintage collection is not in trouble at the moment, but you know, essentially a lot of these figures, or a few of these figures, were actually repacked into the vintage collection. And I wanted to talk about why I think this line of figures is a little bit strange. It has figures from way back, and obviously figures that were eventually repacked into the vintage collection, as I just mentioned. Also, apparently this is my 250th upload to YouTube on my channel. Been going about 2 and a bit years now. 250 videos, it's a lot of work gone into that. I never thought I'd be uploading 250 videos, but here I am, still here. So if you happen to like this video, don't forget to drop a like down below, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. But as I said, I did want to discuss this line of figures and have a look at each one individually, some closer than others because some just aren't really worth our time. But essentially I find that this line of figures is just a bit strange for me, because we've got figures going right back to 2004 placed in this line of figures, which was released in 2015 until 2017. And then of course we've got figures like the Praetorian Guard here, who have been recently repacked into the vintage collection. So a whole range of figures from all different films and stuff from Star Wars. So we're going to take a look at these ones first over here. So this little group here, these were actually released in the first year of this line, so 2015. And as you can see, we've got a weird lineup of figures and characters. We've got a Darth Vader. Now I'm pretty sure that this Darth Vader was repacked from way back in 2004. It's the one with the removable helmet that you can see his head on the back there. He has swivel elbows. So they're releasing a figure in the Black Series, 3.75 inch, was supposed to be super articulated figures. In 2015, they're re-releasing a figure with a helmet that just comes off like that. It doesn't stay on at all, with swivel elbows. So that's the first thing that I did feel that was rather weird about this line of figures. That is not the best Vader at all. Also in this wave, you get a Chewbacca from 2004 as well. This is essentially from the original Trilogy collection. It's the Return of the Jedi Chewbacca with the parting in his hair. Nice enough figure and everything, but again, repacking a figure from all the way back from 2004. I guess you can't really do too much with Chewie, and I think they did repaint him a little bit. So that one's a bit of a weird one for me as well. Next up, we've got Han Solo here in his trench coat from Return of the Jedi. Now this one was actually repacked from the vintage collection from its first time around. He is VC62, repacked straight into the Black Series in 2015. And obviously this was a redone figure from the vintage Saga collection, I think it was, so even older, maybe 2006. But yeah, 2011, this guy, VC62, repacked into the Black Series. We've got another figure here from the vintage collection. Now don't get me wrong, I do like this Akbar. He's a decent Akbar, but again, it's a repack from 2010, VC22. But then of course also in this wave of figures, if you like, we've got a lot of figures from the Force Awakens. Now obviously some of these, and these are the ones that were apparently to blame for the slow uptake of the vintage collection when it came back. You've got the First Order Stormtrooper and the Rey figure. Those two were repacked into the first wave of the vintage collection, also with Jin there as well. But these were originally in the 3.75 inch Black Series. So we've also got Poe there. He was originally supposed to come out earlier, but they brought him out later for and put him on a Rise of Skywalker card in the end, in line with his X-Wing that came out. So again, just a weird lineup of figures. Now the reason I wanted to do this video as well is because there's still some figures in this line that I think we can expect to see in the vintage collection at some point. Sorry, I'm just Poe's falling over, and Rey. Let's get those back. there you go. You've got Kylo as well. So Kylo was in the first wave as well. So you've got Kylo, Rey, and the first Order Stormtrooper all in wave 1 of the vintage collection, which is why a lot of people said it was, you know, a bunch of repack, and it wasn't giving the new vintage collection a chance, basically, because people didn't want those figures again. But I wouldn't be surprised if this Finn doesn't get repacked into the vintage collection. I actually think this is a really decent figure. That head sculpt's brilliant. Really looks like the actor there, John Boyega. Decent figure all over. Looks exactly like what he's supposed to from The Force Awakens. So I don't see any reason why we won't see that guy in the near future repacked on into the vintage collection. I'm not saying I like repacks, but you know, it's just a fact of life that that's what they do. Also in the first wave, going back to 2015, we had the Luke Jedi Knight figure. He was a repack from the lightsaber construction figure. Also came with his robe there, you can see. I believe that was VC87. He was from the Blu-ray deleted scenes. Sort yourself out, Stormtrooper. And then, of course, we do have the Leia Yavin figure, who has recently been re-released into the vintage collection, albeit with a new face deco. It might even be a new head, actually. Looks very different to that one. She looks very much like a China doll in that one. But she was originally released in the 2015 Black Series. So moving on to these figures here, these came out in 2016. This is where we start to introduce some of the Rogue One figures. We've got Casseon. Obviously he was re-released in the vintage collection as VC 130. We've got Jin. She was in the first wave, as I mentioned before. She was VC 119. Captain Phasma was obviously released a little bit later on, VC 142. We've got the Shore Trooper as well, VC 133. This figure's terrible for being on a stand, by the way. You'll never get his feet into onto a stand. So awful peg holes, that one. Now we've got the Death Trooper here, VC 127. Another weird one to repack was the Ahsoka figure. So this was again from the previous vintage collection. She was VC 102. Extremely rare to get that one on card, but if you want the actual figure, much cheaper way to get it is in the 3.75 inch Black Series. That's that one there. Another weird one is Lando General. So this guy was in the original vintage collection as well, VC 47 I think it was, released in 2011. And the weird thing about this one is obviously he was repacked into the Black Series 3.75 red on black boxes, and we're also going to get him in the re-released wave this year of the vintage collection. Another figure from the Force Awakens that I wouldn't be surprised that they would repack into the vintage collection at some point in the future is the old Han Solo. Although I feel that he could have grayer hair, he seems a bit young there for me. But he's in his like snowy outfit on Starkiller Base there. But again, not a bad Han Solo. It doesn't really look too much like him. But again, super articulated, all the articulation that you would expect. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hasbro repacked him at some point. He's just going to fall over, isn't he? Because again, he doesn't stand up too well. And then moving on. Oh no, one more from the 2016. We had the re-release of the Emperor's Royal Guard. He was originally VC 105. So again, another repack into the Black Series line. So you're getting a bit of a theme here, aren't you? There isn't too many new figures, and the ones that are new in this line at the time have since been repacked into the vintage collection, albeit old Han Solo, Finn. Who else have we got that we still need? There's a couple over here which I'm going to come to in a second. So this is where it gets really, really strange for me, is that this guy here, released in 2017 at the very end of this line, he was released in the Vintage Saga collection in 2006. So that's just crazy. And the real bad thing about this is that he still has swivel elbows as well. They didn't update him. So it's just a bizarre move. Decent looking figure, of course, but you know, they need to update these things, in my opinion. Before we move on to the 2017, one more from the 2016 is, of course, Leia here. So let's get her out of the box because I'm yet to check this figure out. So this is Leia from the Force Awakens. And that's actually not too much of a bad head sculpt, really. She looks like she does in the Force Awakens. And again, you know, you could see them repacking this onto a Force Awakens card with the photo real deco. You could see them doing that no problem. Comes with no accessories really, a bit of a boring figure, but it is old Leia from the Force Awakens, so you know you might need that figure for your collection if she'll stand up. Alright, so moving on to the ones that did come out in 2017, not including the Tusken Raider, which we've already covered. But we also did have another repack, or a couple of repacks from the vintage collection. So we have 3 here. Now, before they re-released the Stormtrooper in the 3.75 inch black series in 2017, he was actually quite rare. He was one of the last figures to come out in the vintage collection. He is VC112. So that's actually a smart repack, to be honest. That's a good one. I bought a load of these when I saw them. I've got 3 or 4 of these. Decent figure. Also, they brought out the prototype Fett. Now he was VC60, was it, or VC61? Decent figure, but again, bit of a weird one because he was actually a exclusive mail away. I think you got to mail away for this figure, so just to bring him out in the black series was a bit of a weird one, really. Moving on to Luke Skywalker and the Praetorian. So these two obviously have been subsequently brought out into the vintage collection. We've got old Luke here, came out, he was VC131, I do believe, in like the 3rd wave of the vintage collection 2, you know, since 2018. So that's old Luke. Praetorian Guard from The Last Jedi. So this was one of the last ones to come out in 2017, and obviously he has now been repacked as well into the vintage collection. VC138, I think he is. Again, pretty good figure and everything, but you know, there is a bit of a theme here, isn't there? Now these 2 figures are ones that again I could easily see Hasbro just re-release into the vintage collection, and I know this one's everyone's favourite. This is Rose Tico. Now, forget about the character for the moment. It is actually quite a good figure. It's got to be said. It's got all the articulation you need. Decent face and everything on it. Would I want to see it repacked into the vintage collection? Probably not, but I could see them doing it. You know, at the end of the day, she's a fairly big character from The Last Jedi. Whether they do any more Last Jedi characters, that is. And then, of course, we do have the First Order Stormtrooper Executioner, which is actually a really nice figure. Obviously, it's just a repaint of the First Order Stormtrooper, but this is another one that I could see them easily just repacking into the vintage collection at some point. So basically, I just wanted to go through the Black Series 3.75 inch Walmart exclusives just to show you how much of a sort of weird line of figures it was, really, in my opinion. You've got ones going right back to 2004 repacked into this line. You've got figures from lots of different films. You've got Rogue One, you've got the original trilogy, you've got The Force Awakens, even a couple from The Last Jedi before the line finished and then the vintage collection started again. You've got repacks from the old vintage collection into this line, and then you've got figures from this line into the new vintage collection, which is, I'm sure it's happened before in other lines, of course, but it just seems a bit weird. It's a weird bunch of figures, isn't it, if you ask me? But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I've probably been going on a little bit. Lots of figures to get through and lots of years of when they came out originally and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to give you a bit of an overview. And if I was going to pick one figure from this lot that I would accept as a repack into the vintage collection, it is probably the Finn figure. I think it is a decent figure. Just have a look at him again. It is a decent face sculpt. Let's get a close-up of him. So I think that's a decent Finn figure, in my opinion. I see no reason why we couldn't have him on a on a Force Awakens card into the vintage collection. I could see them doing it, no problem at all. So anyway then guys, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As per usual, drop a like down below if you've enjoyed it, of course, and subscribe if you're new and all that jazz. And we shall see you on the next one.